Hope you all enjoyed your 4th of July. We've got a lot of things to talk about here on the Sooner or Later Sports Show. Thanks for pulling up. Of course, I'm Jay. That is Coop. Thanks for pulling up here on the YouTube channel and listening wherever podcasts are downloaded and listened to while you're here. Please wipe your feet, like, subscribe, rate, review, give us 5 stars. You don't think we deserve it? Go ahead and give us 5 anyway. And gifted. So on today's episode of the Sooner or Later Sports Show, me and Coop got some fun stuff to talk about with you all. First, we're going to dive into Jim Naggie's words. He's saying some stuff, and I promise half of y'all didn't listen to anything he said. We're going to talk about some sleepers as well as some surprises on the Sooner roster this season. And we'll wrap things up, talk a little bit of NCAA 2026 because it launches tomorrow. So, of course, we got reasons to be excited. Coop, how was your 4th of July, my friend?
I still got all 10 digits, so that's always a plus. That's always a plus. But yeah, it looks. I love this time of the year. Tomorrow is your boy's birthday. A week from tomorrow is your birthday. And your little America birthday. And so this is the last month without Sooner football, kids. This is the last month. I'll say it again. The last month without football. We are going to be kicking it off very soon.
I am just in. My heart is warm at the thought that, yes, like you said, you had America's birthday. Your birthday's tomorrow. My birthday's the week after, the Monday after. We've got football starting next month. Oh, it's going to be so much fun. But I did, like you, I have all of my digits as I look. I don't have to worry about that. Thank goodness. Y'all in the comments section, hopefully all of y'all were safe and enjoyed your holiday. I've got some. We're going to jump off and, of course, start with the Nagy deal because everybody's talking about it. It happened right before the holiday. So everybody's now firing off their hot takes. Over the last few days, but it was very interesting to me because when I listened to him and then I saw all of the naysayers on the socials, Coop, I don't really think people actually heard what he said. Like, I feel like so many people missed the words. I'm gonna play it for you all so you can hear it, but I feel like so many people missed it. Am I crazy?
Let's just roll it because I feel like people hear certain things, and that's just a human nature situation. You're looking for something, you want to be able to go have that argument, but you know what? Let's just roll that beautiful bean footage, and then we'll kind of chat about it.
We're going to value it just like we would in the National Football League, and that's where you find your value. What we saw this spring, which I think was a really good way to do it, is we graded the players on our new scale, and then when you get to OV season is when you see where you can get value, right? Because I think what's going to set the market for a lot of these players in terms of what they're being paid and what agents expect to be paid is the star system, right? I think 5 stars want to get paid like 5 stars. So when you get into the OV season, we might have the same grade on a 5-star and a guy that's a 3-star. And when you look at where they're taking their OVs to, if they're going to Ohio State and Oregon and Texas A&M, that's going to be a certain market, right?
Right.
But then if the same graded player is getting offers from some group of 5 schools, we know what direction we're probably going to go because you're looking for that value. If you look at National Football League rosters and dig back into their high school backgrounds, man, that league is littered with 2- and 3-star players.
Yes.
So they're out there.
Yes.
Again, it's just we need to identify those guys and trust our evaluation. So that's really not to share too much of the trade secrets there, but that's how.
That was from the triple option over at KTUL up there in Tulsa. And this is what I think people heard in their mind. Oh, Oklahoma's not going to recruit highly touted players whatsoever. They're only going to go after value. And so because they're only going to go after value, you'll never see Oklahoma recruit a high 4 or 5-star ever again. Coop, is that what you heard too?
No, that is not what I heard. That is not what I heard because he actually said you get your early evals, and then when you get into OV season and you start seeing the shenanigans start happening, you start looking at grades. And I said it, and we love the recruiting services. We love everybody over at 247, the new combo between rivals and On3. But those guys are doing the best job that they can potentially do based off of, I guess a layman's capability to add stars. Jim Naggie, this guy was putting folks into the league. He was running the Senior Bowl. He was running the Patriots. He ran the Seahawks. And, Jay, I'm searching. He won some Super Bowls, right? So he did it well. And I would just say that if Jim Naggie goes and he looks at a body, at a 3-star guy, and he sees the same type of, potential, same pathway as a 5-star guy, why would you not, try to have quality, athletes up and down the roster instead of, blowing all of the NIL and the recruiting and the rev share on 2 or 3 different guys? Because, you saw it, you see it all throughout sports, is you got to be able to have, what's Brent Venables 3 years ago brought up quality depth. You got to have the quality and competitive depth.
Competitive depth, yeah.
Yep. And so you got to have those types of things. And so if you can go out and find, let's go, I brought up this list the other day, but a Hollywood Brown who was a 3-star, a Brian Asamoah who was a 3-star, Delaney and Turner Yale who was a 3-star, Ramondre Stevenson is a 3-star. Those guys are all NFL guys. And I'm pretty sure that there's probably plenty of 4 and 5s that were in front of them that didn't have the career that they had.
No, yeah, no, I 100% agree with you there. And that's so for me, what I heard, and depending on what site you looked at, like Danny Stutzman was a 3-star with ESPN and Rivals. And you're right. Though there's a reason why you had 4, now it's really 3. You have 3 major recruiting sites because not everybody can agree on everything. So everybody has an opinion, and there's multiples that they bounce off ideas off each other, and everybody's eye and evaluation is different. No different than the NFL. Everybody's valuation eye is different. And so for Nagy, what I got out of that entire statement is that when you look at a recruiting class, Coop, you look at a recruiting class, I don't think I've ever seen a single school bring in 25 5-stars. Have you?
No, negative ghostwriter on that.
I wanted to make sure I wasn't crazy there. That is what I was thinking he was looking at. We're going to put together our list of players that fits the traits we're looking for. And then we're going to look for those values on top of everything else they're recruiting. Like the value component, this is why he said he didn't give out all the trade secrets, because the value is on top of what they're already doing. Because think about it. One player that we are heavy in the trenches in right now is Jake Coop. And Jake, if I'm correct, is a very high 4 and 5-star depending on the service.
Yes.
Oklahoma's not bending the knee. They're not bowing out of that situation whatsoever because they want Jake. It's a 5-star. That's a player that they want. You had 5-star Michael Fasusi last class with a very high 4-star Ryan Fogier. So it's going to be hard to get another 5-star tackle right behind them because those dudes are going to start probably for 2 straight years once they get out there. A lot of the 5, your big offensive linemen want to play immediately. But what I saw and heard from him and him saying that is now you got to go find the value players because since you can't bring in 25 5-stars, especially rev share, you got to balance your roster out. So you're going to have to go after some of the 4s and some of the 3s and find another R. Mason Thomas. You got to find yourself another Jaden Jackson to add to the mix, guys that can play that also aren't going to be your top end cost. Why? Because when they go out there and play well, like a Jaden Jackson, you get a pay raise. R. Mason Thomas, guess what happens? You get a pay raise. And that's because once the performance of the field happens, roster retention is just as important as acquisition. And I don't think a lot of fans understand that part.
100%. I mean, you can even parallel it to, a sales career. Is a lot of people like that new business, that new sale, that new client, but keeping your book of business, in tow, keeping those folks happy is good. And I want to point out 2 things, Jay. Number 1 is if you do have, a couple cycles in a row to where you got 4 and 5-star guys, high 5-star guys, we saw a situation, happen this past year to where somebody comes in as a 5-star and doesn't get to see the field as much. And when you are getting playing base incentive and production incentive raises and drops, those people aren't going to stay happy. If they come in as a 5-star and they got that 5-star money, they don't get a chance to see the field because there's people out in front of them. Then all of a sudden you got to go to that person and say, hey man, we're handing out incentives based off production on the field. I understand that you did not get a chance to do as much as you thought, but those tough conversations happen. And what happens at that point? Do you still feel good about your recruiting rankings from the year before, or are you now panicking because now you're paying 4 or 5 different dudes starter money, and there ain't 4 or 5 different dudes doing starting? And then the other point, Jay, and he snuck it in there. Sneaky little Nagy, he kind of just snuck it right in there. He said the agents, and that's another big thing, is those agents are not going to give up. They want to see their money increase. And so if you have an agent, and we can point at something that happened this past weekend, with a specific 5-star commitment, but you have these agents who it's not like the NFL. It is the wild, wild west still at this point on what agents are actually taking, as far as money goes. They're doing all the work, right? And so they're going out and they're getting this money. Well, those agents are going to be the ones handling the conversations week in and week out. Hey, listen, we want to get our incentives. We want to get this. We want to get this. We want to get this. And it's still on the player. And so until there are a lot more, rules and guidelines and just acceptable practices for the agents, these agents are going to keep on pushing and pushing and pushing for more and more and more and more and more money. And so if you got a 5-star like a Felix, Ojo, who just committed to Texas Tech, that guy is going to, basically ask for a guaranteed contract when the last time that we saw him, he was getting manhandled by pretty much everybody at the rivals camp. And so if you're going to go out as a school and say, sure, I'm giving you 3 years guaranteed money, it's just not a good place for your program to be.
Yeah, so in his defense, I don't think he asked for a guaranteed contract. I think Texas Tech walked in with a guaranteed contract. And so I will defend the player on that one only because Texas Tech is trying to make splashes. We saw that with Kennedy on the softball side. You're starting to see it now with some of these players that they're going after. You saw it with the wide receiver that transferred out and transferred right back in, Micah Hudson. He left and then came right back. You see that you see that with a lot of those where some of these schools that do have enough money are going to make a splash jump. Syracuse is doing it right now. They're going to go after and get themselves 1 or 2 really big name players and then fill their rosters from there. There's a comment in here about Oklahoma being broke, and that's not true. Oklahoma's not broke. Oklahoma has spent. Plus, they're in the SEC, so rev share wise, they've got just as much money as every other school out there. We also hired one of the bigger front offices because the one thing you have with rev share is you can't technically go over the cap. Once you allocate that amount, I think there's a percentage you're only allowed to go to football or whatnot, and Oklahoma's going to do the maximum amount. You still got to stay under your cap, just like in the NFL. Like the NFL has a hard cap. I don't know if people knew that, but the NFL has a hard cap. So once you hit that number, you can't pass it. They also have a floor. Just like with the NBA's is a little bit more complex because they've got luxury tax and then they've got a couple of aprons where they fine you for going too high. But the big thing with them is the NBA's cap hits you into the luxury tax. So once you pass that number, you're going to start getting taxed extra, $1 for $1 or two for $1 or 3 for $1. Once you go over that number, try to keep things as competitive as possible with the smaller roster. But the NFL, it's a hard cap. That's why you see good players leave NFL teams and go other places sometimes because teams are like, I got to decide. I pay him a quarterback who's taking the majority of this cap. Can I afford all 4 of these big time defensive linemen? We're going to go get some young ones. So then you start to see that attrition. So no, Oklahoma has the money again. They choose where they're spending it because if there's one thing that Brent Venables has preached a lot of, and he said it, you recruit your own problems. And he had the luxury at Clemson to where it was a lot easier for him to get a lot of big-time players. Hell, Bama had that same thing. They had it easy to get players to come there because they were taking a discount to play for specific coaches. Now Oklahoma has to prove that, which the defense is starting to show it. They're proving that, our defense is improving at the level it should. Now, granted, look at the offensive side of the ball. I promise you, they spent for Jaden Ott. They spent heavily for John Mateer.
100%.
Those were not cheap acquisitions. Please don't get it twisted. But Oklahoma saying, I don't know about it on these high school kids yet, I kind of agree. Most of y'all and those that are complaining about what I'm saying in the comments right now, y'all the same ones that complain when a player doesn't perform. Why are we paying him all this money if he ain't performing? We just ain't going to do it.
That's the first thing out is how many of you guys thought that Jackson Arnold was worth the money that he was showing out last year?
Right.
It's the guy is now in a quarterback battle with a freshman and another transfer guy over at Auburn. And I'll say this is you go look at the money that Mateer pulled, the money that we gave Ott, the money that Fasusi saw. Those are not. And even some of our recent commitments, these guys aren't taking pay cuts to come here. I mean, you're telling me that we're going to get a 4-star tackle in Deacon Schmidt who is going to come in and have, Alabama and an in-state Colorado, and then he's going to come to a 6-7 team for pennies? No, I mean, we paid for him. They saw a value, and they assigned it based on a value. You saw it with, Super Bowl champion Philadelphia Eagles. What happened? They lost players off their team. We're really, really lucky here with the Thunder because everybody is extremely young. But typically, that's not what happens. After the championship, guys want to get paid. Guys want to get that money, and they're going to take more money. They've got the championship. They think that it's in their pedigree to go, you know what? I can go do this somewhere else too and make more money. So you'll see. I mean, there's a lot of guys this year who are going to be getting, good money, and you don't get a guy like, Dominic Williams to come back and go another year. You don't get guys like R. Mason Thomas to come back and go another year. Danny Stutzman last year because you don't have the money to pay them. That's just kind of ludicrous.
Right. Remember, so 2014 NCAA financials, revenue and expenses by school. Coop, where do you think Oklahoma ranked in the country?
I'm going to go with number 13.
Ooh, close. Number 10 in the country. Now, number 7 in the SEC, because a lot of SEC schools got money. Oklahoma is number 10 in revenue in the country. Number 10 in how much money they bring in. Let's pause on that. Let's let that sink.
Number 10 out of
2014. And this was at the Big 12. This was before they got into the SEC. This was at the Big 12. So here's your top 10s. You know what? Let me show it too, because I know that some people are more visual children and they need to be able to see this to really understand and for it to really sink in. All right. So that one is not the right size. There we go. All right. Number 1 is Ohio State, 2 Texas, 3 Bama, 4 Michigan, 5 Georgia, 6 LSU, 7 Texas A&M, 8 Florida, 9 Penn State. Number 10, Oklahoma, $177 million total revenue. And as a nonprofit organization, they spent all the money like they're supposed to without allocating it to other stuff because they have other things that they use to allocate things. But this is all from the public records of money coming in, money going out. Oklahoma has money. Oklahoma has access to money. Oklahoma has people that are willing to spend money. But they also just don't like to frivolously spend. That's the thing about it. Put it to you this way. Ohio State, historically good. Michigan, pretty much historically good. I don't think Michigan spent anywhere near what Ohio State spent to win their national championship. But, besides that, Alabama, I'll tell you, during Saban's era, they weren't spending. And I know they weren't spending because that's when Nick Saban went to the boosters and was making comments about other schools and spending money. I don't know if y'all recall that, but that really wasn't a Nick Saban crying to the NCAA to do something about A&M and, A&M getting like 8 or 9 5-stars and then all of them transferred out. But that wasn't Saban saying that, the NCAA needs to do something about it. That was Saban at booster events saying, hey, look, we need to go ahead and bring in the we need to start bringing in more money into our NIL. You boosters got the money, bring some more in. This is what's most important right now. So go ahead and do that. But the good thing for him is that it was still Nick Saban, because Nick Saban was still getting a Nick Saban discount. Players were coming to play for him. Georgia has that as well. Georgia spends, but Georgia also gets a lot of kids to go there because they want to go to Georgia. You're seeing in the Florida schools, they're starting to up what they're spending because they're trying to compete.
Yeah.
But until you're winning natties, all that spending becomes frivolous, right? Like, to me, if Oklahoma continues to put together and play out this potentially top 10 defense again with an offense to help complement that, Oklahoma has a chance to make the playoffs, be very competitive, and then you're going to see a lot of changing in the recruiting from there. Right now, kids want to see what this team's going to do. They want to see if Brent Venables going to be here next year, which he's going to be here next year, guys. I'm sorry. He's going to get his 5 years. That's what's most important. They want to see it.
Yeah.
That's it. And it happens to you. That's how negative recruiting happens when you have bad years. You just got to fix it.
And I would also say this is, you look, I mean, everybody, it's the recency bias, and everybody wants to get really hung up and say, yeah, but this offense was XYZ last year. How many years, in a row have we had things like that happen? How many years total have we had things like that happen to where you lose two position groups, essentially? You got guys who we already knew that it was going to be going into last year, we were going to go as far as Jackson Arnold and that offensive line that lost so much was going to take us. And then what happens? Before you even kick off a game, you're rotating dudes, playing guys where they shouldn't be playing. You're asking a guy who is new to come in and be the anchor of your offensive line in a different position. You got guys like Jacob Sexton, which, man, I can tell you this is, we brought this up on the show multiple times, is, I talked to his dad beforehand, and I let him know how much I was appreciative of him and his family and what they were doing for the university, because that guy should have been setting himself up for an NFL career last year, not bouncing around left and right, playing injured, just doing whatever he could to help the team just get through to the next week. Yep. So there is a lot that, if you are gun shy because of last year and you maybe are confused about, is Brent Venables the right guy? He was brought in to make this team not look embarrassing on defense. And you may be able to say, sure, I don't think that OU was as good as everybody says they were on defense last year. I won't even argue with that. But were we embarrassing on defense last year, Jay?
Oh, no. We were exactly what we wanted to be and not embarrassing. That was the one thing that I was very happy about. It sucked that the offense forgot how to play, but I think that this squad's going to figure that part out. That's the one thing I am happy about. I do believe we'll figure out all of that on that component of it. And if there's one place I think we'll figure it out on, which we have a whole bunch of, is going to be these wide receivers. Like, I am really excited about seeing what Satania does to go with Deion Burks. Like, he's probably the one guy that I think we don't talk enough about, if you want me to be honest.
100%.
He's probably the dude that we have not dug deep into. He's the talent that I feel like, he's going to surprise a lot of people this year.
I don't think Satania is going to be pushing 1,000 yards. I don't think he's going to be pushing 75 catches. But I think that this entire group is going to have guys to where it's the opposite of what we saw last year. When you got nothing to offer from anywhere throughout the field, you go find the only threat and you clamp down on that threat. There was not, our offense did not threaten, for explosive runs. We did not threaten for explosive plays downfield. And so everybody played in a phone booth all year last year. Well, now you're going to be bringing in the Gibsons, Jermichael Carter, Burks is going to be back, Satania, Elijah Thomas, who, again, people start getting on that train and they forget about him because he's a freshman and we haven't seen him yet. But we're going to have, I would say that we're going to have 7 or 8 wide receivers that are going to be able to give you a bevy of different looks and different opportunities. And Jay, I just feel like it would go, I'd be remiss to not say, like, when you have an offensive coordinator who actually knows what the hell he's doing, that's probably going to help too. That's
probably the biggest part there, right? Is we put our guys in a very bad position with the unfortunate, OC situation we had before. And we learned our lesson. How did we learn our lesson? We said, you know what? We're going to go ahead and go get a guy that can bring a guy with him that understands what to do and let those dudes go do their thing. And I 100% believe that I 100% believe that Mateer is that dude. The one thing to consider, too, when it comes to how this offense will look completely different compared to last year, Coop, is these guys have been together 3 years. This is going on his third year. Remember, Mateer was there with Cam Ward when Cam Ward's first year. When, I can't think of the OC's name now. He's the head coach down there. Was it Texas State or North Texas? One of the two. Not G.J. Kine. I think he's at North Texas. I got to look it up. But anyway, Mateer jumped from one OC to the next OC with Cam Ward, and then he's stuck here with Arbuckle. So now you've got a combination of a dude that knows the system. This will be like Dylan Gabriel was when he came. And I know a lot of people weren't the fondest of DG, but DG did a lot of winning for us.
Yeah.
And my guy Phil Steele and his preview book, he has Oklahoma his finishing the season top 10. He says this is a playoff roster in his eyes. And the last time Phil had Oklahoma as his most improved and is one of his top 2 surprising teams, we won 10 games in the regular season. So I kind of believe what Phil sees and how he feels about Mateer, because he thinks Mateer is going to walk in and he's going to cook in the SEC. We've got a couple of really tough rosters we're going to see, but I don't think it's going to be that bad. I think this dude's going to surprise everybody. The hype is real, and that's for a reason. Let's just put it that way.
It is. And if you're wondering, how does John Mateer factor in? We can continue to point out all the stuff. I think that a lot of you guys in here, feel the same way, and you've listened to us when we're talking about, he played several, decent defenses last year. Cam Ward went down to Miami and, same type of path, and went down to Miami, and his offense was never in question. If anything, the defense down in Miami probably what held them back, and a lot of errors. John Mateer, what was it? I saw recently that he is up north of 220 as far as weight-wise goes. So he knows that he is in for a different type of a physical challenge this year, and he has been putting in the time in the weight room. He's never had a strength and conditioning program like he has this year. He has never had, I guess, the tools around him that he has this year. And so, I fully believe that you put Mateer on this team last year, it's worth 2 more wins. You put him on this team this year with some of the assets and the tools. Who are you going to, if you line up at Illinois State week 1, who are they keying in on offense? They got no film on anybody.
Yeah, it's going to be a tough part.
What's Michigan going to do week 2? They're going to look at basically a live scrimmage from the week before, and there's going to be guys all over the place. And we saw what Deion Burks could do even with Jackson Arnold at the helm in week 1 last year. And so I am if you want to call me a sunshine pumper, listen, it's July, and that's when the sun shines is right
true.
Now.
It's hot outside.
But it is hot outside. But I will say this is, my prediction for this season. I'm not taking any. There's nothing I've seen that makes me go, well, maybe there. Listen, I think this is a 10-win team. I think this team is going to be in the playoffs, and I think that there's going to be a lot of people going, what the hell is going down in Norman? You guys, you're here early. You guys are knowing what's going on. You're seeing what's going on, and you're going to also see a lot of guys on the defensive side. We said it going into the beginning of the year last year. I think that there's more talent on the backups than there were on the starters on defense going into the year last year. Yeah. Now you've got guys like Reggie Powers, who is now in year 2 and is looking like himself. He looks like he is going to have an absolute unleashed year. And I'm not just saying that because his pops is in there.
Look at the neck.
Exactly. You've got guys like Kendall Daniels is a damn mutant. That has got a 6'5", mid 200-pound dude just floating around in the middle of the line. Marvin Jones Jr. I'm excited. This, like, again, I'm very, very glad that it's July and this is the last month without Sooner football.
Yeah, and that might be. I think Daniels could be BV's Isaiah Simmons. He's been looking for one. I think Deshaun McCullough, that was who they hoped was going to be the Isaiah Simmons role, but McCullough's more of an edge, outside linebacker edge type. Like, he's more of a pass rusher. He's not really the coverage guy. He's not really the as the coverage. He's not really someone that, I mean, he'll stop the run at the line of scrimmage. But yeah, he's not chasing running backs, in the flat. That's just not where his skill set is, which I think McCullough's going to be fine up there in Nebraska. I just wish we could have leveraged him like that more, but at the same time, we still got a whole bunch of edges. Our Mason Thomas cooking, so it's kind of hard to play him over our Mason when our Mason is doing that. And at the same time, McCullough was dealing with injuries because everybody kept chopping him because of how big he is on that edge. He was dealing with a lot of adversity and capacity. But no, you're right, because if you go back and listen to us talking about last year, and I've had a few people ask me about that, I was pointing out to people that the thing that worried me for last year, and we said it, there was more questions than there were actual concerns. And the big questions were, you got a young quarterback with a young offensive line, but you're hoping that your skills guys, running backs and wide receivers, are the ones that can help to create enough time and be able to create a little bit of comfort for that. Well, you didn't get that. The offensive line stayed injured and the wide receiver stayed injured. So everything that we said needed to happen in order for the offense to be any good didn't happen. That was kind of an accurate prediction on our part. We leaned in heavily on, you got young guys, you're going to need the veterans to save you. Well, this year we don't have to worry about that. The offensive line is actually going to be a lot more veteran because they got their tail kicked and they understood what to do to get better in the SEC. And they played a lot better in the games when, they weren't falling apart. But then you bring in two big boys with Fasusi and Fogier. I think that's going to be your saving graces there. Those are going to be the ones that are going to help out. But get off that soapbox. This year is different. You now have a quarterback who's one of the best in the country in scoring. He found ways to do it. Don't care what you say about who he played against. He played against when the pack was actually really good. I think that Mateer is going to shock. I mean, Cam Ward went over to Miami and shut it down and went number one. I'm not saying Mateer is going to end up number one, but I think that Mateer has the skill set to be able to be up there in that conversation. But then you got Jaden Ott, which I think is the one that we've talked about him, Coop, but we haven't talked a lot about him. I think he's going to end up being the X factor. And then ESPN dropped, and let's jump into this one, talking about the sleepers for each college. Oklahoma has one, had the sleeper for Oklahoma, which they have Oklahoma 25th in the country right now. The sleeper, Zion Kearney. That's the one that ESPN thinks is going to be the sleeper player on this roster. Remember, I mean, he's 6'1". He's legitimate. I know he's over 200. I think he's probably closer to 210. He looks like he's big. But when he was at the TCU camp, he ran a 4.2 840. Now he has a quarterback that I think can overthrow him. And now we just need him to catch it. Think he's going to end up being that dude that steps up, especially even with the Gibson boys coming back and Deion Burks and Satania being our favorites. I think he's going to be that. I think he really is going to be that sleeper that's going to really jump out and cause problems this year.
And here's the thing is I think that you get a holistic approach. If you don't have threats at the running back, if you have issues at the quarterback, if you have issues at the offensive line, that receiver crew is really plagued by all of that. And, it is the chicken or the egg. Do you throw to loosen up the run game or you run to loosen up the passing game? I think that Jaden Ott being a guy that is coming in and looks like he could be that explosion, at running back that we have not seen since maybe Mixon. we've had good guys. Kennedy Brooks was he just ran with a specific pace, and he just had a certain way about him. But there has been a lot of injuries with Gavin Sawchuk and Javante Barnes, and it's really, really been hard to kind of lay in and depend on somebody. But when you got guys like Tatum and Rob, and listen, don't be too surprised if we don't see a little Blaylock popping in, because that dude is starting to look. I don't want to throw out specific names, but he looks as a freshman what AD looked like as a freshman.
Mm-hmm.
In that mold. Not exactly like AD, and I'm not saying that he's going to go run for 1925 as a freshman, but we have the options at running back that are actually looking really, really, really good. And what that happened, when I bring this up, is you have the quarterback run, you have the capability from an OC standpoint that you're going to be able to scheme these wide receivers into using the assets that they have. We saw so many times last year that we saw a great receiver like a Ragens going out there and running like you got a 10-year-old playing a video game out there, trying to make him do stuff that he's just not built to do. And there was a lot of confusion when it came time to the wide receivers. And I think that when you have this entire offense that is going to be able to live off of each other and build off of each other, a guy like a Satania, a guy like Deion Burks, tell me this, after watching the first couple quarters in last year versus Temple, how many of us were going, holy hell, this guy's going to have 20 touchdowns this year? So I would just say this is the offense as a unit is going to be much more complimentary, and it's going to allow guys like Zon Kearney to be who he can be. It's going to allow guys like Satania, Burks, Jermichael Carter. Like I said, I think that there's going to be 7 or 8 guys this year who actually have a very, very big impact on this team as a wide receiver. And that doesn't even throw in what you could potentially get out of the tight ends, because we were asking Bauer Sharp to do a lot of Superman stuff, and he wasn't Superman. He was Jimmy Olsen. And you're asking him to get out there. And so, I really do think that that's going to be it. Also, when your offense has some capability, your defense gets rest. And I've heard that that's good for a defense. Just was reading the Twitters. But I heard that if you don't have to play, 90 snaps on defense while your offense, plays 11, and gives the ball back every other touch, like the defense gets a chance to rest. You get to rotate guys in. You get to coach guys up instead of them having to run right back out on the field again, because we are just really, really not good on offense.
Yeah, we were pretty awful, like legitimate awful. But difference is again, we'll have some. I feel like we've got better teachers in the passing game, and EJ is really going to be able to lean in on getting his guys to where he wants them to be. He's got veterans that will execute the way he needs them to execute, and the young guys be able to follow suit. That, to me, is where you get that. And making the right reads, making the right passes, getting rid of the ball when you need to get rid of the ball. Those are big difference makers. Those are big deals when it comes to executing on your offense. And so, yeah, you're right. I think Kearney's going to step out. I do think that we'll hear about Elijah Thomas throughout the year. I think ET gets some run. And if he keeps showing out, he may fight for some more game. But I do want to say this, though. With BV's confidence on the Gibson boys being back here in the fall, don't be surprised to hear them both potentially being out there for Illinois State. It's probably the best game to get them some routes in, or at least have them out there warming up. Michigan's probably the game I know that one, if not both, should be playing. And if we get Giovanni back and Jaden back, with how deep the room is this year in comparison as far as health-wise, because everybody else, for the most part, quote-unquote, knock on wood, is healthy. You got Keontae Lewis is healthy. Zion Kearney is healthy. Burks as well as Satania, healthy. It's really just Giovanni and Jacob. Carry On's out there. You can go with the freshmen too, but you didn't even mention them. Everybody else, for the most part, is ready to go. I don't know about KJ Daniels or Zion Ragin. I haven't seen or heard much about them besides, seeing them do some routes occasionally. And I know BV talked about it, but for the most part, our room is way healthier than it was. We don't have anybody. Your Jaden Gibson's your Andrew Anthony from last year. He's the one that's coming in from an injury from the post year. That's really it. And then with Giovanni's injury being not as serious as Kendall Doby's, and Doby's back.
Yeah.
I think we're right to see that room go. But when it comes to recruiting on that one, I want to jump in that real quick and put the bow on the Nagy component of it is we got a lot of wide receivers, man. I went and looked.
We're missing guys. You're missing guys. We keep on forgetting Keontae Lewis. We keep on forgetting even a Jacob Jordan who actually showed out and was like, hey, I can play out here too. Jacob Jordan did a lot of his stuff against SEC competition, and now he's a year further into the system. He's a year more mature. I think that where you're going with this, Jay, is you got a lot of dudes right now, and you're going to be able to show a lot of productivity to some of these guys who want, it's their life and it's their livelihood, and you need to see something because that negative recruiting around, you could go there, but you're just going to ride the pine because they can't seem to get their guys healthy.
Right. Yeah. You got your Michael Carter also who just came in. So
yep.
I'm going to say this. You've got about 6 dudes that I know will be rotating heavily. Jermichael Carter, both the Gibson boys, Keontae Lewis, Zion Kearney, and I expect a lot out of Elijah Thomas. And that's your outside guys. Then you got Burks as well as Satania rotating basically your interior guys. You'll probably see some Jacob, Jordan, Josiah Martin, who also transferred in. We've got a lot of wide receivers. Like I went in here and I did the math on it, man. We for real got let me see, what's this? We got 17 wide receivers, and we only have 2 that are actually leaving after this year. 3 technically, but I don't think Major Melson's going to play much. I haven't seen him ever, besides on special teams. But Keontae Lewis and Deion Burks are your 2 redshirt seniors, so they're the ones that will be bouncing. So when it comes to the recruiting component, you may want to go try to get 3 wide receivers. You got Danny Odom already, top 100 guy, so you've got him. That's always a plus, and it sounds like he's hardcore in, like he's sold.
Yeah.
So you got with Daniel Odom being here, you probably need to add 2 more wide receivers, maybe 1 more, because then at the same time, we're probably going to go shop in the portal and get another young wide receiver that we have to see potential with. Someone we talked to in the past. For example, Josiah Martin is one. He went over to Cal and he looked really good at Cal.
Yeah.
He's out of Texas. He was one that we kind of looked at and was like, I don't know how I feel about him. Well, I don't know if we're ready, if he fits what, the old regime was doing. So they didn't really recruit him. Then as soon as, that regime was gone, the OC, you spin the block back on him, and you saw him perform at Cal. Y'all see what I'm saying? Like I'm not downplaying anybody's concerns around the recruiting, but I'm pointing out that you got 2 places to get players: recruiting trail, transfer portal. Marvin Lewis was a former 5-star that was actually looking at Oklahoma when he was a recruit. Circle the block back on him, and it sounds like he's actually shown that he's ready to play now, even after he spent time at Georgia and at Florida State. So keep that in mind when you think about the recruiting part. When the transfer portal comes around, you're going to see some people and you're going to be like, oh, yeah, I'm glad we got that dude because that was a dude that I really wanted. You may see some redshirt freshmen show up out of nowhere at Oklahoma. Look, everybody tampers. I'm just going to keep it a buck. Everybody does it. So don't be surprised if an agent reaches out to be like, hey, I have a kid that will hit the transfer portal, and he now thinks that he wants to come play at Oklahoma. There you go.
You're going to see a lot of stuff, that's really looks like the recruiting has suffered, right now. But this coaching staff feels very, very good about the pieces and where they have made the splashes as of this point. Sure, do we want to be up there for the for the bragging rights? Yeah, we do. But I like going back into the year 2000. What are we looking at? We're dealing with the 26 class. I think that we have out recruited Texas 3 times in that time span, and I've never.
It's not gonna happen.
There's a lot of stats that point towards blue chippers and point towards stars and stuff like that. But
I agree with it.
I'm just gonna throw this out. Like it's still up to the players. It's still up to the coaching. And if you are a dude who wants to get all that money right now before you've done anything, this may be a rude awakening for you. And again, like Sean just said, after last year, you're going to take a little bit of a kick. But I promise you roll in to the Red River rivalry, looking at 5-0. You do something in that game. All of a sudden, some other programs who are trying to figure some stuff out, now that flips back on them. And now you got people having conversations like, hey, about that offer and about that. There's a lot of guys OU has been in the final kind of runs for. I think in the long run, if you are who you are and you always are that person, Jay, going to your point, people are going to circle back and they're going to be like, hey, listen, I went and I tried this. I took that big payday. I kind of want to do some winning. And, the NFL is going to find, and I still think it is something that not any other program can really, really do. And I'm just going out on a limb by saying this, Jay, but if you are a player and you know that you're going to be a second, third, fourth round type of a guy, who else than Jim Naggie would you want in your corner having conversations with NFL execs and scouts and saying, all right, so this is who he is. They're going to listen to Jim Naggie. They're going to listen to that. And it doesn't matter if you're a guy who starts 60 straight games or if you're a guy who just gets in and plays a lot, because there have been a lot of guys. You can look back at quarterbacks. You can look back at a lot of different guys. When you have a good pedigree and you are in a talented lineup, the NFL is still going to find you. And I'd rather have Nagy being the one pushing the buttons than some random coach who doesn't have those relationships like Jim Naggie does.
And Jimmy pointed that out. That like if you look around the NFL, you see a bunch of no star up to 2 stars that people didn't notice. But at the same time, a lot of those players, they sometimes develop later. And so like Khalil Mack was probably one of my favorite ones. It's he becomes a defensive player of the year type player, but it just took him a while to get to that point. Aaron Donald was rated pretty low. I'm giving you the grades for this particular reason. I don't disagree with the rating system and the correlation of blue chips to competing for championships. I don't negate that. I don't disagree with it. I think that it's actually a very accurate because it's stats based, it's numbers based, and it's pointing that out. But the thing to keep in mind with that component is too, as you said, Coop, is the coaching too. As you said, Texas has out recruited us every year, roughly like since the beginning of time, I believe. They can do that. They're in the state where a lot of the talent comes from. And they have no problems with throwing money at every single person, regardless of who they are. So now, as we're seeing with, I think the Ojo situation is probably the funniest. We can talk about that now. I think it's funny because I saw so many Texas fans saying that he was taking money over development as if they weren't doing that with, who was that? Justice Terry? Who literally said it was the NIL package of why he went there over Georgia.
I'm just going to say.
Literally, that happens. And that's nothing against, that's what they do. Texas can. That's what they do. They're going to throw the bags, do all of that. Nothing wrong with that. While at the same time, how many semifinals wins has that gotten them so far? Let's keep that a buck because that's where we are. We have not won in the semifinals either. So until one of us gets past the semifinals, it's not much that either one of us can truly say about the other team. Get past semifinals first. Make it right. Make it out of the top 4. Make it into the actual national championship game, then both of us can say something. But either team can talk noise. But you got to do that. Oklahoma went 4 times. Did not get past it. Texas has gone twice now and got past it. You got to do it. Get past it. Do it. But on that, though, I do agree. I put it this way. I don't believe that crapping on the rating system is the right thing to do, in my personal opinion, when it comes to stars and stuff. And I say that specifically because all they're looking at is how these kids perform at the camps. Yep. They have no clue how their work ethic's going to get once they get to the next level. We have that same problem. You get a kid in. Who was that? I think we had, 3 or 4 5-star wide receivers that one year? And then you had to kick 2 of them off the team because of all kinds of stuff. And then you just
Bridges, Hazelwood, and Weiss.
Right. Yeah, 3 of them. I'm not gonna say. I'm gonna mention the names, but I'm just gonna say that it just didn't work out. That happens a lot. Like I said, A&M had 7, and none of them are there anymore. They're all over the place. What it is that you it's hard to judge the character and the dedication you're going to get out of that kid once they get onto your campus. I mean, we've had some 4 and 3s that was similar. I mean, we had a 5-star that unfortunately, he was 5-star in his class, but he ended up being a 4-star when he reclassified. It didn't work out because of similar situations. It happens. What do we have to do? We got to keep hammering on evaluating, and hoping you land. Yeah. Because truth be told, Coop, our retention rate has been really good here at Oklahoma.
That's
one of the highest in the country.
That's a very, very big piece, because you got to be able to sell people on the fact that there is something happening. Listen, if it was as bad as it looked last year, we would have seen an exodus like you've never even you realize that we probably should have lost a lot of people last year. And we didn't see anybody leave because they thought the ship was burning, that it was going under. And so, I'll always put it this way. You get guys to come in, and a lot of the star systems and everything, that's based off of projections. It's based off of where they're at. We say it all the time. If Elijah Thomas was playing down in DFW, that dude's a 5-star. Right. It's just plain and simple, but he played in Shakota. You see guys all the time who come in, and like I said, bringing up old names here. You see a guy like Kenneth Murray. The guy led the NFL in tackles. That led the team in tackles. He was a first-team All-American. This is a guy who was a 3-star. You're going to have dudes who come in and are going to take the challenge, and they're going to ride it out, and they're going to listen to the coaching, and they're going to become coachable. And you're going to have guys who come in, and they're going to think that, the team, you invested in me, show me the money, bringing it Jerry Maguire style. And it's different by program. Texas is always going to get what they're going to get because they're the flagship school down in Texas, and a lot of those kids, they're going there as soon as they can walk. Yes. You see stuff like I 100%. Saw the Jacksonville State. I see the Jacksonville State thing. I see the Syracuse thing. Don't parallel Oklahoma recruiting to those situations. Syracuse is doing that. Georgia Tech did it last year with the big offensive lineman too. They're not trying to build a championship program. They're trying to stay relevant. They're trying to say hey, we are still here and we're still a thing. And they need to do that. They need to drop these massive splashes. Syracuse isn't going to the playoffs and winning anything this year. Jacksonville State's not going to do any of that stuff. Georgia Tech's not hitting the playoffs this year. Those things are not going to happen. But they have to, because you see the rich continue to get richer, and the blue blood programs are going to continue to be the blue blood programs. And a lot of universities are operating in massive amounts of fear right now, because you're a couple of bad decisions away from complete irrelevance. And that's a tough place to be. Outside of the Big Ten and the SEC, there's lots and lots of schools that are just doing anything just to stay in the mind's eye, in the public's eye. You're going to have to see some of these things. And so if you say, well, we can't get a 5-star, but Jacksonville State can, or Syracuse can, Listen, if you want Oklahoma to make a big splash and throw a massive bag at a player so that we can feel good about ourselves for about 5 days and point towards it for the next several years, yeah, but we got that 1 5-star.
Yeah, right. It sounds great.
It's a different game.
Yeah, you want to make sure that you're making the right decisions for today and potentially next season. Again, one of the bigger things that, like, I was reading some articles about rosters, and majority of the bigger NIL packages and deals were for retaining their top players. Like, it still cracks me up to hear, which I do not doubt it whatsoever, on Lenore Sellers, schools hitting them up saying, hey, hit the portal, bro. We'll pay you $8 million.
Yeah.
All it took was 1 year for him to prove that, yeah, I'm worth the money. And so schools went after it. But he decided, no, I want to stay and finish out where I started. Finish out what I was doing. I committed to these coaches. They gave me the opportunity. They instilled and entrusted in me to go out here and perform. And guess what? I performed, and now they're taking care of me and allowing me to be out there. Those are the type of dudes you're chasing. Like, and I like I said, I get everybody's concerns and wanting to be at the top of the don't matter. It don't matter if your players are leaving after a year because they outperform their initial deal. That's what you're chasing. You're right. You have Dylan Stewart getting offered all kinds of stuff. I know he's making like $2 a year because of just how ridiculous he was as a true freshman. That's what you're going to get. Imagine trying to do that 4 times over. And that's just the defensive line. That's like majority of your NIL package. That's majority of a lot of schools' NIL packages. I know we spent a lot more. We spent 8 figures in NIL that people don't realize. But it was a lot of retention. A lot of people on the roster. Like, I mean, I was reading about, like Ohio State and Texas spending upwards of 25, 30 million for their rosters. I mean, that's a big 8-figure number, right? Early 8-figure numbers like that. We were in the early 8 figs, but a lot of our problems is we were paying our current players, dudes on our roster today, because we had a lot of guys that had a lot of potential to bounce. Believe me, like the whole wide receiver room leaving, kind of a blessing for us. We kind of needed that. We needed a refresh after everything that happened last year. You kind of need a refresh there. But yeah, you're spending a lot of money on that defense. That defense is expensive.
And yes, and don't think that we lost all those receivers and they're now slotted at the starting position at their respective teams. We still need to see what is Andrel Anthony going to look like. Is he back? Can he mentally come back from the stuff that he dealt with? Nick Anderson, that's a loaded room, and he's not running out there with the ones. The last reports I read from LSU. So you got to kind of watch those things. I mean, there's a lot of people who, and I'm not saying that, listen, I wish Nick Anderson was still on this team, fully ready to go. I do. I think that Nick Anderson has the body type to be an explosive player in the NFL, but your best ability is availability. And if you can't be out here, your measurables don't mean a damn thing. And guess what? We're still paying a dude who can't play.
Yeah.
Instead of paying for somebody else who is out there playing. But no, I mean, so you're starting to see, I know that we have a very, very close friend of ours here, Mr. Slate, talking about guys, there's a lot of these gems that came in like Simmons. If you guys saw the shotgun picture of, was it Troy Everett, Sexton, and
Jesus
Simmons from the, you got to pull that one. You got to pull that one up. But I mean, you have some dudes who, certain times of night, if you saw those clowns just walking around in that picture, that's not a group of guys you want to walk up to. But Simmons is a guy who is a freaking road grader, and he is, what is it, 6'6", 340.
Whew. Yeah, let me find it. I'm looking for that picture right now real quick because I thought that was yeah, those big boys are yeah.
And I will say, to everybody, thanks again for joining in with us today. Happy 4th of July belated. We're glad you guys are all in here. It's a lot of stuff. This is the time of the year to where you're going to start seeing some controversial lists start hitting it up, and
love it.
To get people all fired up. But you're also starting to see some respect being paid Oklahoma's way. Phil still has us very, very lofty expectations. SEC
He's the only one. Well, SC Mike too. I think he actually has some lofty ones too. But
yeah.
But yeah, Phil does have some lofty expectations for us. Don't worry, I am here. I am searching for this picture that I know we had in the court. I couldn't find it on the socials, but I know it's in the Discord, and I thought that was like insane to see.
Might have been taken down by the government. I'm not saying.
It might have been illegal because those boys are big. Let me see where I'm not finding it. Sorry, guys. It's gonna come at some point. But there's some big boys. Reasons to smile. I'll put it that way. You all will be excited to see your offensive line.
And Jay, there's also a lot of weight that needs to go to this. We just sat there and our offensive line was the scapegoat, along with Topher. It is the picture of Sexton, Simmons, and Everett holding the shotguns.
I cannot find it for the life of me. I did find the one of Stone in them, all the defensive linemen working out. Jesus.
There's that one too.
Stone, I will show that one in a second.
Stone approaching 320.
Did you just put that in there, Topher? I appreciate you. Gosh, I love you, Slate. Thank you so much. Someone post the picture of the defensive line too. There we go. Some scary looking dudes, man. I didn't realize that that was the height that we had going on. Coop, go ahead and commentate on that for the people so they know what's going on here. Let me go pull up the other one, the defensive line.
So, I mean, right now you've got Sexton, Simmons, and Everett here. These are, I think, what you're missing. Fabichi Wewu, and I still don't know what this lineup is going to look like. I do know that these are probably 3/5 of the group. You're going to see a good rotation of people. I bet you see a lot of Fasusi. I think Fasusi is going to be in the 2 deep. I just don't see how his athleticism and a lot of the reports and stuff from spring. He is just a different breed of animal. He is learning. He doesn't even know what he doesn't know yet. But I do think that you're going to have Sexton and Simmons, and then probably I gotta say maybe Ozaida still at the left guard, and Fabichi Wewu at the right guard. I bet Fasusi does do a little swing action, but I also think that Foje, you're going to see him playing in and rotating in a lot at guard also. The one thing that I really would hope to find out here soon is what does the backup center situation look like? How serviceable is that person? But I mean, these are guys. This is each one of these guys are. I would say Sexton's probably the lightest one. He's probably coming in around the 310-ish, 312, something like that. I know Simmons is 340, and I know Sexton is approaching the 330 mark. So those are some big dudes. And you also have Logan Howland, who is trying to approach 100% right now, coming off of his shoulder surgery that he had. He had a cleanup procedure, but I mean, there's going to be a lot of beef on the line, and when you see guys like this being the front ends of that, that's got to make you happy. And I know that John Mateer, we were talking to somebody, Jay, and a parent, everything is different versus last year. Mateer does a ton of stuff again with the offensive line. We saw Dylan Gabriel do that. Why that's important is I think that those are the first people that you need to have on your side, and they need to know that you are thinking about them and appreciative of them. And those guys are going to be absolute monsters for John Mateer. So that's a big group, Jay.
Very big group. Let's talk about this defensive line, too, real quick. We'll do our depth charts and stuff. SEC Media Days is coming up the week of the 14th, the week of my birthday. We'll be there. I'll be out there, and we'll probably record the show that Sunday, get depth charts out, talk about who we think is going to be where as we prepare for fall camp. It's going to be exciting, but this... let me see. Let me make sure this is properly done. Yeah, there we go. Let me zoom in like I like to on ginormous human beings. Good Lord, he is big. That's a big kid. Like, I think there should be laws against it.
There we go.
Jeez Louise. That's your D-line. Stone looks huge. I don't know if y'all realized that.
Stone is huge.
Yeah, he's ginormous.
I feel like
it taller.
Was SEC, it was SEC Media Days, and then I want to point out we had a little fat Nigel happening there. Nigel has put himself in on the big end side too. But what was it going into SEC Media Days? I think Brent Venables made the comment last year that he just had gotten report that David Stone was up over 300 pounds.
Yep.
So a year later, he is now 317. And looks like the dude has been working and sweating. So, you got Dominic Williams over here, G Baby. Like I said, you got Jaden Jackson, Marvin Jones. It's just PJ back in the back looking menacing. That's another thing is, I would say that really, really excites me, Jay, is when you have the quality and competitive depth, you don't rely on one guy. You don't rely on two guys. You've got guys that are coming in waves, and there's a reason why a lot of people are dubbing OU's defensive line. Once again, OU's defensive line as not only the best in the SEC, but the best in the nation heading into the year. And it's because it's one after another after another.
After another, after another, after another. That's what we're here for. Is this defensive line being able to roll out more. You know who's very fascinating? Is this Bergen Kaiser kid.
Oh my God.
Did you see I know there was a post I think he did from him training, and I saw the picture of him, and I'm just like, that's a big boy.
Bergen Kaiser had a full ride scholarship, obviously, from BYU. He is a guy that you could have seen him go and be on a lot of freshman All-American teams at BYU, going into this year. And this guy is just an absolute stud. So
he's a unit.
There he is right here.
He's one that we're not even talking about.
No. Anything you get from him is gravy.
Yeah, he's one you should talk about more, though. Good Lord. Look at him.
But you're starting to see some of these NFL, pedigree bodies. You're no longer seeing a D tackle in there, pressing 278, 280. You're not seeing a defensive end who, has got short arms, not very explosive. It is going to be... again, nothing that we did last year means a damn thing this year, Jay. And so this team is going to have to come back and show that not only were they the real thing last year, but they are better.
Exactly.
Trent Wilson up over 300 pounds. There's going to be some guys. And I think that it's going to be a little tougher on this defensive line, Jay, because everybody saw what happened last year, and so now the defensive line is something that the teams are going to gear up for and prepare for with more intent. Not saying that you're going to roll into any week in the SEC and just take a position group like the defensive line for granted. But a lot of people said, can OU hold up on the lines, in the SEC? The offense is what it is, but the defensive line, they held up their own. And I'd like to see a lot more, getting home this year. But BV, his defense and, Todd Bates, Miguel Chavis, they can be effective without sacks. They cause chaos and they cause people flying around. And, you get guys like Taylor Wine out there at 276, I believe. Like I said, with Kendall Daniels out in the middle, with his big body. You've got tools all over the place. You get guys in the defensive backfield, back like Kendall Dolby, and there's not going to be. You're going to have to come in and play a brand of football which know what you're going to do and get it out of your hands quick, because you're not going to be able to hold the ball against this team this year.
One thing I care about is that it's time for OU to go to work. It's time for this defense to replicate what they did last season. And it's time for this offense to give this defense the help that it needs in order for it to continue to propel itself higher. I think the secondary is going to be better. That's going to be the fun conversation we're going to start having once fall camp hits. What's that secondary going to look like? What's especially the DBs? Because if everything sounds the way it sounds, Gentry and Eli Bowen are going to be your main dudes. Dolby rotating from cheetah to corner. You're gonna the secondary is gonna look exactly what you hoped for last season. So that to me is gonna be big. Kim, you asked about Arnold. I think he's starting probably. They're probably not gonna start a true freshman on the road against Baylor, in which Baylor is supposed to be a heck of a lot better than they were last year. So since that's the case, I kind of expect him to start. I don't know if he's the starting quarterback when we play him though. That's just me being truthful.
That's just a few weeks. Just a few weeks later, and I can promise you this: it wasn't all Jackson Arnold's fault. But you get a bunch of folks in Norman after last year, and you get a chance for this defense to go crazy. And Jackson Arnold is the recipient of all that angst. I think that if Jackson Arnold can make it out of Norman, he's still the starter at quarterback. He's tougher skinned than I thought, but man, I just don't see it. And yeah, Red, just bring it up too. Cortland Guillory, another freshman defensive back who is starting to make some splashes. You've got a lot of good options at defensive back right now. We still have Jacoby Johnson is still out there, but you've got Cortland Guillory, who is a guy who just plays football, and he is just an absolute stud. Malik Hawkins also is going to be a young pup out there trying to get some playing time. So that's why the competitive depth is such a big thing, Jay. And I know that this is not like the 11th time I said it today, but you got guys who are pushing each other and want to play. And it's going to be hard. It's going to be hard to keep your job, and it's going to be hard to steal snaps. And but that's what makes a defense really, really good. Is you got people coming every single wave wanting to steal the guy in front of them spot.
That's what it is. Competitive depth is critical for us to survive. All right. Thank y'all for pulling up. Hit the like button. If you're new to the channel, subscribe, rate, review. Give us 5. I'm going to wrap this bad boy up with a bow on it. Enjoy your Sunday. We'll prep right before SEC Media Days. We'll have a few things to talk about to, prep us more and more. Because right now we're 7 weeks away until football starts, 8 weeks until Oklahoma football starts. And, yeah. Keep your eyes open, because I think soon is going to surprise everybody. Coop, last words for the people?
Man, just enjoy it. This is the time of the year. We're going to get right in the middle of football season before everybody realizes it. And I think this is a chance for this year is going to be something that is going to be a season that we're all going to be really, really excited to see. We'll need to start seeing some of the preseason lists come out, see the guys on that list. Michigan's your first litmus test for this year, and I think that we handle Michigan pretty easily. They're a team who was just like us last year, solid defense, an absolute embarrassment on offense. Asking a lot for a dude to come down to Norman, Oklahoma, second week of the season against a veteran, salty defense and do something. So, if you're trying to find the tickets to the games, I know I've been getting the calls, and it's now time.
It's time. Get on it. All right, we're out. Catch y'all in probably about a week. Peace.